Hey guys, welcome back to T-Bones Tech. In today's video, we are going to be reviewing Canon's 85mm f1.8 USM lens. This is an absolutely fantastic lens for portraiture. Having a focal length of 85mm really helps you get nice and close to your subject, but because we're shooting at a longer focal length like 85mm, it's going to really help us get some very nice facial compression, and that's mostly what we want when shooting high quality portraits. We want all the facial features to be very flat. We don't want anything to be exaggerated. If you ever got close up to somebody with a 18mm kit lens, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, where their nose is absolutely massive and it just really distorts their face. You want a very flat image, so shooting at anything 85mm or above is usually what we want when shooting portraiture, but you can get away with using a 50mm lens if you're shooting on an APS-C body. Here's a sample video of this lens being filmed with the Canon 80D, and as you guys can see, the background is absolutely beautifully blurred even though I'm not standing too far away from it, and you can really tell how this is just a fantastic lens for portraiture. And here you can really tell how close I was to my background and how you really don't need too much separation to get beautiful looking backgrounds. The lens is constructed out of a plastic body, but the plastic still does feel very good in the hand, and it does feel like a very premium lens. The focus ring is extremely smooth and feels very nice when focusing, and it's very easy to pull focus and it's very easy to lock on focus when manually focusing this lens. And that's very important on a lens like this that produces very shallow depth of fields. It's important that you can focus it and get your tack sharp focus, and that your focus isn't going to move at all when you release the focus ring. It also has an all-metal mount, and you're going to see this often on higher end lenses like this one. Unfortunately, this lens is not weather sealed, so you're not going to want to shoot it in a downpouring rain situation, but in a light sprinkle, you're not going to have any issues. Looking through this lens, we can see this massive f2.8 aperture that's just going to let a ton of light into your camera sensor. And this f1.8 aperture paired with a long focal length like 85mm is going to give a quite nice separation of your subject from your background. And the f1.8 aperture is going to be great for nighttime photography. You open up the aperture all the way wide open just like this, and then you can shoot at a lower ISO, creating a lot less noise. The lens also has a focus distance indicator, which is really nice to see on a lens, especially at this price point. It weighs in at 425 grams, which is just a little bit less than a pound, so it's really not a heavy lens at all. So it'll be great for all day shoots. You're really not going to experience too much discomfort with this lens, like most probably would with the Canon 24-70 f2.8 lens. The lens has an 8-bladed aperture, which is going to give us very smooth and circular looking bokeh in the front of the scene, but taking a look at the edges, we can see some lemon looking bokeh, which can be a little bit distracting, but nothing too crazy. I'd still say the bokeh quality is very good. This is an EF lens, and that means that it is designed to work with full frame cameras like the Canon 6D, the Canon 5D Mark IV, or of course any camera that has a full frame sensor. But it is also compatible with cameras with APS-C size sensors like this Canon T7i. Putting this lens on an APS-C size camera, you're actually going to have a 1.6 times crop factor. So it's going to turn this 85mm lens into a 136mm lens. So it's going to make it a lot more telephoto. Here's a sample of this lens being shot with the full frame Canon 6D, and here we can see this lens being shot with a APS-C camera, and as we can see, it's zoomed in a lot more. This 85mm lens unfortunately does not have image stabilization, and that means that we're going to want to shoot at least 1/100th of a second shutter speed when using this lens on a full frame camera. And on an APS-C body, we're going to want to shoot at least 1/200th of a second as our minimum shutter speed. Otherwise, things are going to get really shaky with this lens. So here's a sample video, and I was trying to hold the camera as steady as possible, but as you can see, it's definitely still jerking around and not very smooth and hardly usable. Planning on shooting video with this lens, make sure you're using some sort of stabilization gear. Like a tripod, monopod, or gimbal, it's going to make a big difference. Focusing on this lens is extremely quiet, and it's also very fast. This lens sits very nice in the hand, and the focus ring feels exactly where I'd want it to be. It's very easily accessible, and it's right where you want it. This lens has full-time manual focusing, so if I put this camera into automatic focusing mode, I can actually still manually focus the lens without doing any damage to the internal components. And that's really an awesome feature to have, and it's usually only seen on more expensive lenses. It also has a mount for a lens hood, which is really nice because you can easily just pop one on, and I think the lens hood cost maybe around $40 on Amazon, but you can definitely pick up a third-party one on Amazon for around $11. If you are planning on taking a lot of portraits throughout the next couple years, I highly recommend picking up this Canon 85mm lens. You are definitely not going to be disappointed. The backgrounds are absolutely beautiful. They really help separate the subject from the background, and it's just a very sharp and very affordable lens that I definitely highly recommend. Jump into the image quality of this lens. This first picture was shot with the Canon full frame 6D. So we're going to zoom into the center of this picture here, and we're going to check our image quality and sharpness. So it seems like it is relatively sharp here in the middle of the screen. Now let's stop down this aperture to f2.8. Stopping down to f2.8, we can definitely see that we gain a good amount of extra detail here. Just take a look at this crack over here in this brick. We gain a ton of detail here when stop down our aperture, just one stop from f1.8 to f2.8. Now stopping down to f4, we can see that we don't really gain any sharpness whatsoever here in the center at f4. So let's zoom out here and let's take a look at our overall sharpness in the corners of the screen. And here in the corners, we can definitely see that it is suffering from vignetting. So let's zoom in and really take a close look at it. So here in the corners, we can see that they are definitely not sharp at all, and it is much darker here in the corners than it was in the middle. Now let's stop down our aperture from f1.8 to f2.8, and here we can see that they get a lot brighter, and we can also see that we definitely gain some extra sharpness here at f2.8 than f1.8 in the corners. Now let's stop down one more time to f4, and here at f4 we can see it gets even sharper and even brighter here in the corners of this picture. And that means that f4 is basically the sweet spot for overall max sharpness on this lens. Let's stop it down one more time to f5.6, and here at f5.6, there's really not a big difference between f5.6 and f4 as far as image quality goes. So we can see that f4 really is the sweet spot of this lens. We're going to get absolutely fantastic image quality. We're not going to get any vignetting, and we're also going to get max sharpness here in the corners of the screen. So that's what this lens looks like on a full frame camera. Let's see what it looks like on an APS-C size Canon 80D. So here is the first sample picture. As you can see, it's much more zoomed in, and that's because of the 1.6 times crop factor found on this lens. Let's zoom into the middle of the lens and check for sharpness. And here in the middle lens, we can see that it is definitely relatively sharp. There's a lot of detail here on the rust and here on the brick. Let's stop down our aperture from f1.8 to f2.8. And here at f2.8, we can see we gain a good amount of extra detail here in the rust and in the brick. Let's stop it down one more time again to f4. And here at f4, we gain even more detail and even more sharpness, which again is to be expected because f4 really is that sweet spot like I talked about. Now let's stop down our aperture one more time to f5.6. And again, here at f5.6, it looks basically just the exact same as it did at f4. So now it's time to check for sharpness and vignetting in the corners. We can see there's really not any vignetting here in the corners, but let's zoom in and really take a look if we can see it when it's zoomed in. So here we are at f1.8, and let's stop down our aperture to f2.8, and here we can see it gets a little bit brighter, so there's a tiny bit of vignetting here at f1.8 versus f2.8. Now let's go back to f1.8 and check for sharpness here. So make sure to take a look at the cracks here and in the brick. This is at f1.8. Now stopping down to f2.8, we can see we gain a good amount of extra detail, and again it definitely does get brighter. Let's stop down our aperture to f4, and here at f4 we can see we gain even a lot more detail in the corners, even on an APS-C camera, which is a crop camera. And now let's stop down our aperture one more time to f5.6, and here at f5.6 there's basically no difference between f5.6 and f4 as far as image quality goes. So to summarize, this lens is extremely sharp even at f1.8, but it's definitely going to be absolute sharpest here at f4. But overall, this is an absolutely fantastically sharp lens, and I think the image quality is just really good. Zooming in again to the middle to check for chromatic aberration and distortion, we can see we really don't see too much chromatic aberration here at all. However, I have heard that this lens definitely does suffer from some purple fringing. If you're shooting high contrast subjects like chrome, or potentially light coming in through windows, potentially there could be a little bit of purple fringing. But like I said, this lens is definitely very sharp, and I think it's a great lens if you want to get into portraiture. It's really not too expensive. The price of this lens comes in at around $350 if you want to buy a brand new one. You can buy a used one for around $270 to $300. If you guys are interested in current pricing and availability, I will leave a link in the description down below where you guys can check this lens out on Amazon to save you the most amount of money. But that's all I got for you guys in this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up down below. And of course, make sure to hit the subscribe button and then you'll be notified every single time I put a brand new video to this YouTube channel. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you all in the next one.